Hello, guys. Hope all is well. So let's talk today about remote job search. I've been getting messages and requests about, remote work. So today's podcast, it will provide guidance on effective strategies for conducting remote job search. We will emphasize on communication skills, relevant tools, and tailored application material. Okay, and we will also discuss importance of communication skills in remote jobs and what are they. So let's find out what are the strong communication skills and the importance of communication skills in remote jobs, right? How important these communication skills are if you like to work remotely, correct? Let's find out.
Strong communication skills are essential for remote job seekers to identify and target suitable roles. Conducting an honest self-assessment helps in understanding one's abilities and narrowing down job options. Key remote communication tools. 4 main categories of remote tools include video conferencing, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, messaging applications, Slack, Google Chat, project management tools, Trello, Asana, and file sharing software, Google Drive, Dropbox. Including these tools in application materials demonstrates readiness for remote work environments.
So let's analyze, these job descriptions, how these skills are important in job descriptions for relevance, okay?
Relevance. Carefully reviewing job descriptions helps identify critical skills and keywords relevant to specific roles. Emphasizing implied skills such as communication and problem solving is crucial for tailoring applications.
So use STAR method for applications. Utilize the STAR method for applications. Say, what is STAR method?
Situation, task, action, result. Aids in demonstrating transferable skills effectively. Providing context and quantifiable metrics enhances the impact of application materials. STAR method is a powerful technique for writing resume bullet points that effectively demonstrate your skills. Here's how to use it. STAR stands for Situation. Describe the context or background of a specific work scenario. Task. Identify the specific task or challenge you needed to accomplish. Action. Describe the specific actions you took to address the task. Result. Explain the outcomes or impact of your actions. Key tips for using the STAR method. 1. Focus on the action and result, especially on resumes where space is limited. 2. Try to include quantifiable metrics when possible, but it's not mandatory. 3. Go beyond simply listing tasks by showing how you solved problems and made contributions. 4. Demonstrate the impact of your work, not just what you did. Example, instead of just saying managed customer service calls, a STAR method bullet point might read, resolve complex customer technical issues, reducing average call resolution time by 25% and improving customer satisfaction scores by 15%. The goal is to provide context, show your specific contributions, and highlight the tangible results of your work, which helps employers understand your value and capabilities.
So let's talk next. What are the common job search strategies? What are the alternative job search strategies? What's the freelancing and volunteering for the experience? Leveraging your niche on job board, right? Effective networking, right? Tailoring applications for job relevance. Final tips, what you can use as a job seeker. How important it is tailoring your resumes today. Challenges, in job listings, right? When you see those listings, correct? Roles of LinkedIn in job searching, value of cover letter in applications, learning online, any tech skills, importance of communication skills in remote jobs, categorize remote communication tools, and analyzing if the job description that you're applying for is relevant to your skills, correct? Utilizing the STAR method for resume, and common mistakes in resume writing, strategizing for finding remote job opportunities, altering any job search strategies, correct? Freelancing, volunteering. So these are all the points that are very relevant in your job search. So let's go over these crucial job points they are very important for your job search. That these are the common strategies that you need to utilize.
Job search strategies. Online job boards are the most common method for job searching. Using advanced search filters can help narrow down results. Searching by various keywords and exploring different industries can uncover more opportunities. Alternative job search strategies. Reverse job search involves creating a list of target companies and regularly checking their hiring pages. Networking through informational interviews and online platforms like LinkedIn can provide valuable insights and referrals. Freelancing and volunteering for experience. Short-term opportunities such as freelancing, contract work, and volunteering can help build skills and experience. These roles can fill gaps in resumes and enhance marketability to potential employers. Leveraging niche job boards. Utilizing both general and niche job boards can maximize job search success. Niche boards like FlexJobs focus on remote, hybrid, and flexible roles, providing targeted opportunities. Networking techniques. Building and maintaining relationships is key to successful networking, especially in remote job searches. Engaging with professionals on LinkedIn can increase visibility and lead to potential job opportunities. Tailoring applications for job relevance. Customizing resumes and cover letters for each application is essential for demonstrating relevance to hiring managers. A base resume strategy can save time while ensuring tailored applications for specific roles. Final tips for job seekers. Clarifying target roles and identifying in-demand skills is crucial for effective job searching. Diversifying search methods and focusing on audience needs can enhance the chances of securing desired positions. Importance of tailoring resumes. Tailoring resumes to match job descriptions is crucial for capturing employer interest. Researching the audience and understanding their needs enhances the relevance of your application. Ignoring irrelevant experiences can lead to losing employer interest. Challenges in remote job listings. Many remote job listings inaccurately require in-person work, causing frustration for job seekers. Approximately 95% of remote jobs have some location requirements, often misclassified as fully remote. Utilizing advanced search filters on job sites. Searching. LinkedIn remains a unique platform combining job search, social media, and professional networking. Having a well-maintained LinkedIn profile adds credibility and trust for potential remote employers. While other platforms exist, none offer the comprehensive features of LinkedIn for job seekers. Value of cover letters in applications. Cover letters are still relevant and can enhance job applications despite the prevalence of ATS. A tailored cover letter allows candidates to express interest and align their experience with job requirements. Quality cover letters can positively influence hiring decisions, even if not always read. Learning online tech skills. Job seekers should identify frequently mentioned software and job descriptions to focus their learning. Free software versions and online tutorials can provide hands-on experience for skill development. Enrolling in affordable courses can deepen knowledge of industry-specific tools if necessary. The document provides guidance on effective strategies for conducting a remote job search, emphasizing the importance of communication skills, relevant tools, and tailored application materials. Importance of communication skills in remote jobs. Strong communication skills are essential for remote job seekers to identify and target suitable roles. Conducting an honest self-assessment of abilities helps in narrowing down target roles effectively. Categories of remote communication tools. 4 main categories of remote tools include video conferencing, for example, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, messaging applications, for example, Slack, Google Chat, project management tools, for example, Trello, Asana, and file sharing software, for example, Google Drive, Dropbox. Including these tools in application materials demonstrates readiness for remote work environments, analyzing job descriptions for relevant skills. Job descriptions provide critical insights into the skills and attributes employers prioritized. Candidates should note keywords and implied skills to tailor their applications effectively.
So these are very important points, in your job search, especially working remotely. Make sure the cover letter is very important according to ETS, and learning all the tech skills, resume difference for different remote jobs, right? So all of these are very crucial points, along with strong communication, right? That was number one, especially when you're working for remote jobs. You have to be a strong communicator.
You are a strong communicator roles where standing your skills can help you narrow down that target role. And then you can leverage those skills to help you make the leap from your current role to your future role. So it's always helpful to kind of conduct an honest assessment of your abilities before diving into your search. You're just like, you want to get clear on your target role. You want to get clear on what it is. Similarly, when you are targeting remote jobs, again, regardless of field, which primarily refers to remote communication tools, as opposed to field or industry-specific software programs. But you can also leverage field and industry-specific software programs to help you bridge different gaps and land target roles as well. But there are 4 main categories of remote communication and collaboration tools, and I've listed them here on this slide, and I'll give you some examples of each category. So in terms of video conferencing platforms, we're talking about things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and WebEx. For messaging applications, you have things like Slack, again, Microsoft Teams, Google Chat, or Discord. For project management tools, there are things like Trello, Asana, Jira. And then for file sharing software, you have Google Drive, Dropbox, and Microsoft, including these types of skills in your application materials, like technology skills section on your resume, or maybe, demonstrating or explaining the ways that you've used them through, your bullet point descriptions of past jobs, or maybe in your cover letter, you can give employers confidence that you have the right skills to be successful, not just in that specific type of job, but in a remote environment as well. Because a lot of people want to work remotely, but not everyone is necessarily well suited for that environment. So you want to make sure you're giving employers confidence that you have the tools needed to be successful. Okay, so how do you know which skills to emphasize? And how do you demonstrate that you actually possess those skills? A good place to start is carefully combing through job descriptions, because relevance matters a lot, and the job description helps you understand what will be most relevant to that specific employer. So as you review job descriptions, make note of the words and requirements and attributes that stand out as being critical or essential to that role, or certain keywords that are maybe mentioned multiple times. And also pay attention to skills that are maybe implied rather than just stated outright. Like, for instance, that first bullet point in the sample job description on the right of this slide, it mentions that the person in the role will be working directly with customers to resolve technical issues. So that would mean that communication, problem solving, and technical skills are all important to touch on in your application materials, and the way that you include these relevant skills in your application materials. It can be a little tricky because you want to try to demonstrate that you possess those skills, not just list them out on your resume without any sort of evidence or support to back up your claim that you actually possess those skills. In an interview, you've got unlimited, space, so to speak, to talk about your transferable skills. But that's not true on your resume. You have to keep your bullet points brief and on target or on topic. So you could consider using the STAR method to help you explain how your transferable skills will benefit each employer. Employers want to know how you've used those skills, not just that you have those skills. So using that STAR method can help you kind of prove that. And STAR, if you're not familiar, it stands for situation, task, action, and result. On your resume, you could describe a situation you faced, identify, the tasks that you needed to accomplish, describe the actions that you took to accomplish that task, and then explain the results that you've achieved. And if possible, it's helpful to include quantifiable metrics to help you emphasize your results. But not all roles or tasks really lend themselves to easily quantifiable results. So that's not necessarily a must-have. It's just a nice to have. But it is, important to note that, like we said, you do have limited space on your resume, so you won't always be able to include all aspects of STAR, but you should, at the very least, always try to include, the action and the result, keeping the STAR method in mind as you write your application materials. It's going to get you thinking along the right lines. And make sure that you're providing the appropriate context to demonstrate that you actually possess the skills you claim to possess, like we mentioned earlier. But let's take a look at a few sample bullet points on the next couple slides. Okay, so I'll pause here for a moment so that everyone can read read through these bullet points. So one of the biggest mistakes that job seekers make with their resume is to simply list off the tasks that they perform without emphasizing the impact of their contributions, which means that, their resume essentially ends up just reading like a job description, which really isn't helpful at all. Employers don't want to know just what you did. They want to know how you did it, why you did it, and what results you achieved. What was the impact of your work? And with these samples, you can see that we go beyond just listing out tasks. We're showing, problems that were solved, contributions that impacted others, results that, benefited our team or our customers. Those are the types of things that employers care about. So make sure you're keeping that in mind as you are writing your resume. And here are a few more samples. These ones are more technical in nature, and I'll pause again so everyone can read through these. So I mentioned previously that it's important to provide context or support to the claim that you possess certain skills, meaning that you want to demonstrate them rather than just list them. And the same is true of technical skills. It can be valuable to have a technical skill section on your resume where you are just listing some things out, but it's also helpful to explain your experience with those technical skills, particularly if they are referenced by name in the job description. You can also see too that some of our samples have, quantifiable metrics included, others do not. And like I said, it's a nice to have, not a must have. With those quantifiable metrics, you still are able to emphasize or convey your impact, even if you don't have numbers associated with that impact. All right, so we've talked about the importance of finding a target role or roles that align with your skills and abilities. But now let's talk about finding opportunities that match your target roles. And we'll start with the most common method of job searching, which is using online job boards. So when you know what you want, it can be frustrating to, have to scroll through pages and pages of unrelated job opportunities. Now, not all job boards are created the same, but it can be incredibly helpful to leverage the advanced search filters that most job boards offer. Leveraging different filters can help you narrow down your results to match what you're looking for. Just be careful to find a good balance of filters, kind of prioritizing the ones that are most important to you. Otherwise, you might narrow it down too much and end up with no search results. And then if the site you're using allows it, that you don't have to reset the same filters every single time. And it can also be helpful when you're using job boards to search by more than just job titles. Employers have gotten pretty creative, I'll say, with the names that they assign to different jobs. So it can be helpful to expand your search terms to, different keywords related to your target jobs, or even, different skills that you're hoping to leverage in your next role. And exploring different fields and industries can also be helpful. And you can sometimes find filters that can help you narrow down your search by industry. So if for instance, you've been working in, let's say, like a customer service capacity in a specific industry, but maybe that industry has been facing layoffs, you can try to find your customer service roles in other industries that might be growing rather than retracting. All right, so now let's talk about a few alternative job search strategies that can help you diversify your approach and maximize your chances of success. So the first on our list here is something that's often referred to as the reverse job search. You create a list of target companies that you like for whatever reason, like maybe you appreciate their product or service offerings. Perhaps you've worked or interacted with those companies in the past, or you've just heard good things about their company culture. Once you have that list of target companies, you can then bookmark their hiring page and check it regularly to see if they're hiring for positions that align with your target roles. And then you can make efforts. You can also make efforts to kind of meet and network with people who are already working there to hopefully gain some valuable insights or even land a referral to an open position. And that actually segues nicely into our next strategy, which is networking, conducting informational interviews, and increasing your visibility online. Which might sound like three different strategies, but they all interconnect pretty nicely. So I'll talk about them together. And a lot of people think that networking kind of boils down to obtaining favors or help from people that you know or have recently met, but really, successful networking is all about building and maintaining strong relationships with other people. And since our focus today is on remote jobs, we'll focus primarily on remote networking by using online networking sites like LinkedIn. You have the ability to find and build relationships with people who are already doing the type of work that you want to be doing and employed at the companies where you might want to work. So by engaging with these people, meaning that you follow them on LinkedIn, you consistently interact with and comment on posts that they create in a supportive and appreciative way, and maybe even share your own industry relevant posts to encourage discussion. You can then begin to kind of increase your your visibility, and start to build new relationships. And as you continue cultivating and maintaining these relationships, you can find opportunities to share about your professional goals, ask them questions about their work, getting useful inside information, and potentially find out about opportunities that you might not have found otherwise. Now, I will say, networking is definitely kind of the long game approach, but I always like to mention it because it's something that you can continue doing throughout your entire career, whether you're happily employed or not, so that you have people that you could turn to for support when you do need it, and you can provide them with support in return. Cultivating these mutually beneficial relationships is important, and putting that relationship at the forefront of your networking efforts is definitely important as well. Next, here on our list, we have freelancing, contract work, and volunteering. These types of kind of short-term opportunities are a good way to meet people, learn, and apply new skills, which you can then use to help market yourself to potential employers. And they give you the chance to build experience in your new field or area of professional interest. And even though you're doing it in a temporary or volunteer role, this type of experience can help you kind of close those skills or experience gaps, get that experience on your resume and prevent those gaps from hindering your job search. And then lastly, we have leveraging niche job boards. It can be helpful to use a variety of job boards, both big and small, general and niche. For instance, flex jobs can be considered a niche job board because we have sort of a specific focus on remote, hybrid, and flexible roles, but lots of different fields. And industries have smaller niche job boards that help you find opportunities that could be missing from some of those general job boards. So consider doing some research to find other options that you could add to your job search resources. Okay, so I wanted to give you two different kind of examples here on this slide. And the first one there at the top, or I guess in the middle, I should say, is a screenshot from the LinkedIn search feature, and it's an example of how you can find the right people, people who are working in the positions and industries that you want to work in yourself. If you start with a keyword related to your target roles, or even, a job title that you're pursuing, you can then filter by that people tab or button, I should say. And once you do that, the results will show you people who have or currently are working in that field or doing something related to that keyword. And then from there, you can search through the results and start following people who seem like they could be good networking prospects. And after you follow them for a time and, then engage with them, which builds your visibility, you can then send them a connection request, which is a bit, deeper level on LinkedIn than just simply following someone, but you build that visibility and develop that relationship. You can eventually get to the point where you ask them to have a conversation with you, which is often referred to as an informational interview, or perhaps, ask some questions directly through email or direct message, which is what we'll talk about here in just one moment. But within this search feature on LinkedIn, you can also click that all filters button and then filter down your list of potential networking targets even further. For instance, you can select filters so that you could find people at specific companies in specific industries, people that went to, particular schools, and a lot of other options. So if you're interested in doing some networking, which you hopefully are, this search feature can really be a great help. And then the message below here at the bottom of the slide is an example of how you could request an informational interview once you had the chance to, follow, engage with, and then eventually connect with someone that you're hoping to add to your network. And this is just one example, but you can see that the message is friendly. It shows appreciation for the things that this person posts or shares, and it demonstrates genuine interest in them and their career before making a small request to ask the person some questions. The smaller the ask or request, the more likely the person is to accept, but it is important to put in that initial work to increase your visibility and build a relationship with someone first. Otherwise, your request might just be ignored, no matter how small it is. Now, if you end up landing an informational interview with someone in your field or industry of choice, here are some basic sample questions that you can ask them. Obviously, you don't have to ask these specific questions, but you do want to be prepared ahead of time. You also want to be respectful of their time. So it's best to keep it to just a handful of questions that demonstrate your curiosity in their career journey and show that you genuinely care about their specific advice and guidance. You don't want to go in, asking for favors or requesting that they maybe put in a good word for you at their company. That kind of self-serving style of networking is really transparent, and it's a good way to kind of quickly burn bridges with other professionals. That's why relationship building is such a critical component of networking, and that's why I keep emphasizing that component. Okay, so now just a few final tips on your marketing yourself effectively for the roles that you are hoping to apply for. So we've touched on some of these points already, but they are definitely worth reiterating because of how essential they are to marketing yourself effectively. Like we mentioned before, relevance is extremely important, which means that you need to think about your audience being recruiters and hiring managers. What are they looking for in potential candidates? What are their needs and priorities? What problems are they trying to solve? What challenges are they facing? These considerations will help you understand how to portray yourself as the right fit for the position they are looking to fill. And the best way to understand the needs of your audience is to pay careful attention to job descriptions. Job descriptions are essentially, you know, the employer's ideal wish list for a candidate. So make sure that you understand the description and are presenting your background in a way that aligns with what they've included in that description. You have something on your resume or cover letter or in your interview isn't going to be relevant. You should aim to, adapt it to your audience or consider leaving it out entirely because that relevance is key. And then along those same lines, you want to make sure that you are tailoring your applications for each and every job based on what you've learned about your audience through that job description or, any other additional research that you've maybe conducted into that company or into that industry. And now I'm not saying that you need to write a completely new resume for each application, but you should be taking time to kind of tweak and modify your resume and customize your cover letter every time, which, will of course slow down your job search efforts a bit. But quality is far more important than quantity when it comes to job searching. But I will share a tip here that I personally use when I'm job searching that can save you quite a bit of time. And I often refer to it as the base resume strategy. Essentially, you create a base resume that is already, in sort of a general sense, tailored to the specific type of audience that you are, going to be interacting with based on your target roles. And you might have multiple base resumes if you're targeting multiple types of roles. And then, after you've created those base resumes, when you find a job that you want to apply for, you'll think about, which base resume fits that job most closely, and then make a copy of that base resume and retitle it. Your first name, last name resume for whatever the company's name is, and then you can tailor it for that specific job description. And you can focus the bulk of those tailoring efforts on the top portion of your resume, where your professional summary and highlighted attributes section is located so that the most relevant information will be prominently displayed for that audience. But it's also smart to review your bullet points, your descriptions of your past jobs, and consider maybe adjusting the wording or maybe even reordering the bullet points to make sure everything aligns with your audience's expectations. And you can take a similar approach with your cover letter, but be careful that you aren't just, changing out the company's name and then sending the same cookie cutter cover letter off to everyone you need to actually, focus on the specific role and what attracted you to that position and that company. And again, this is a strategy that I personally use, and it can save you a lot of time while still allowing you to tailor your materials effectively for each application as you are writing and tailoring your materials. Also remember that you want to show, not just tell, make sure that you're giving those examples and telling those stories that actually highlight your experience with different tasks and skills and responsibilities. And then make sure that you're emphasizing your impact by showcasing the type of results and outcomes that you've achieved. Employers don't want to know just what you did. They want to know how you were successful with the things that you did. Okay, so before we move into our Q&A portion of this webinar, here are a few final reminders and action steps that take going forward. First, we have get clear on your target role because it's going to influence so many other aspects of your job. Search. Identify your in-demand skills so that you know which of your attributes you can leverage to demonstrate your fit for your target roles. Diversify your search methods beyond one single strategy or one single job board so that you can maximize your chances of success and then market yourself effectively, thinking about your audience and what their needs and priorities are, so that you can then tailor your application materials for each role. All right. is a site where you can have kind of your resume or experience kind of outlined online, and then people are hiring can potentially find you. But there's not necessarily the like social media aspect of it. You're not sharing posts or following companies and things like that. If you're looking at trying to use like the job search, maybe you don't like the job search feature of LinkedIn. There's a lot of other job search sites, but if you're looking at, or if you're trying to find a site or another example, if you want just the social media, well, then there are, there's Facebook and there's Twitter and different social media platforms like that. But if you're looking for something that kind of does all of those things where you can list your experience, you have the social media aspect, you have the job search aspect, well, then LinkedIn really is kind of the only resource for you. But I recommend to people like LinkedIn is really valuable. There's a ton of things you can do on there, but you don't have to rely on it solely. I just encourage people and don't ignore it. Particularly when you're looking for remote jobs. One of the important things to think about with remote jobs is if you land a 100% remote job, there's a good chance you're never going to meet your employer face to face. So there's a lot of trust on both sides of the equation here for remote jobs. So you want to make sure that you are giving potential employers kind of that extra layer of trust. So, if they see your resume, they like what they see, they would probably want to, before asking you to interview, or sometime during the interview process, they would like, another layer of verification. And your LinkedIn profile helps provide another layer of verification. So having a LinkedIn profile, I think, can never hurt you as long as you're not sharing inappropriate things or anything like that. But it definitely helps you. So not trying to say you have to be on LinkedIn, but there really isn't a site that I know of, at least that again can do all three of those things and can provide us as much value as LinkedIn can in that way. So hopefully that's helpful information. Of ATS or applicant tracking systems. Yes, cover letters are still really valuable. Cover letters will always be a point of frustration, I think, for job seekers because they take time to write. They're not exactly fun to write. And then there's a lot of, question marks involved. Like, is the employer going to read my cover letter? Is my cover letter going to actually matter? Am I just wasting my time writing this cover letter? But the way I view it is that your thoughtful, tailored cover letter, just like a tailored resume, is an important aspect of a complete job application. So I take the quality over quantity approach in my job search. And if I am finding jobs that I really want to apply to, I am definitely going to make sure that I am submitting a high quality, complete application. And that includes a cover letter. Because in that cover letter, I'm going to take the time to explain my specific interest in that role, in that company. I'm going to take the time to, give them some examples of how my experience really aligns with what they're looking for. And I'm going to, let a little bit of my personality shine through. So your cover letters, kind of like a LinkedIn profile, really can only help your chances. There is a possibility that it's not going to be read, that it might get ignored, but there is also that possibility that it could move the needle in the right direction for you. So in my mind, it is worth submitting a cover letter. And valuable. And in terms of the applicant tracking system, specific part of your question, some ATS can read cover letters, some cannot, but typically, the applicant tracking system is not going to necessarily be scanning or parsing from your cover letter in the way that it would from your resume.
So hopefully all that is helpful to you guys. And I have one more question just came up that, there's if someone doesn't have those tech skills, how would, one learn them? Kind of step by step process, you know, you don't have if you don't have the online tech skill, you just, you know, pay attention to the job description, what they are looking for, and you might, either you can learn those skills, or what program or the piece of the software that you are seeing that mentioned time and time again, that maybe you can bring that up, that that software, right? So of course, in like Microsoft Office, like Google Workspace space, right? Some of the remote tools and things like that, you can shine them because you've been using that in your office work, correct? So, but I'm also seeing like industry specific, ones being mentioned in roles of, like, for description of the target roles, right? That would help you figure out, um, which one you need to focus on, um, and then you have to figure out also that, if there's any free version of the software that you can learn from, um, you can just check around and then come up with the hands-on experience. And then, of course, if you look for, like, you can look for tutorials, you can go to the company websites. They might have the software programs, or even that you can see various tutorials on various websites. So if you like the specific industry, right, to enroll, or like looking for free or cheap option, affordable, of course, to sort of like process it, right? I would go there. I try to download and learn from that, and then I would say, is that, check with that, if those softwares are, of course, they are relevant to your resume also, the resume for online job, because the resume for online job, they differ from one in-person job resume. Okay, so now really an exception being for resume job, or should be remote jobs. Your resume should highlight, as I explained it before, the experience you might have, the skills you have, the technical skills you have, the soft skills you have. And that just show, like, that you are capable of being effective in your remote environment, in your remote job, right? So hopefully all this is helpful to you guys. I know we had a lot of, covered a lot, and which is a good thing, that we were able to cover a lot. And I encourage you to check, online, jobs you are looking for. Make sure it's your resumes are relevant to that job. All right, guys, I wish you guys all the best in your job search journey. And thank you for joining us today. And I will talk to you soon. Again, this is Ruby Singh with Jobs and Career. Talk to you soon. Bye. Have a great day. Thank you. Take care. Bye.